In the final section, we're going to look at life in a space station, and we have a unique person to tell us what it's really like, Helen Sharman, cosmonaut and the first Briton to travel into space.
Oh, this is so familiar. I used to sit hundreds of hours. I've sat in front of this control panel. This was my side, the right-hand side, and the commander sits in the middle and the engineer sits on the left-hand side. But I sit on the right-hand side, so these were all my controls.
So the question that immediately occurs to me when I see this panel is how to avoid pressing the wrong button.
You have to press 2. So if you just press one button, the light doesn't work, it doesn't happen. But if you have to say, let's say, N12 together would make a particular set of controls actually work. This is the same globe that Gagarin, or not identical globe, but the similar globe that Gagarin would have used actually in his flight in 1961. And the idea is that, yeah, you can actually see where you are over the Earth's surface. Apparently it's particularly useful when you're coming back to Earth, they say, because if you land not quite where you're expected to be, you've got a bit of an idea. But, you know, it's such a small globe that if you're on the border between China and Russia, you're still not really sure whether you're in safe territory or not. But nonetheless, during my training, I would ask them, you know, why do we have this certain set of controls connected to this, connected to that, and ultimately to the globe? And they would say, well, Gagarin used the globe. And then after that, we added a few things, and we added a few other things.
Right.
Would you like to be the person that, for the very first time in space, tests us making a different set of connections? No, that's fine. I'll have Gagarin's globe. You
seem to be saying there's quite a long sense of tradition in the program of cosmonauts.
They love tradition. I mean, the Russian culture is just full of all of this tradition. So often we do repeat the kind of things that were done really because it was done by Gagarin. I mean, we still take the same kind of wormwood scrub grass into space that Gagarin did. So he took it as a kind of a bit of a good luck, something he could smell because it was a bit of a nice smell for him in space. We take the same kind of grass with us. And I love that whole idea that you're part of a whole culture. So becoming a cosmonaut rather than just some spacefarer, you really are taking on board all of that.
This panel comes from a Soyuz capsule, and there is in fact one here in the exhibition. And the thing that is remarkable about this is that it's very similar to what is used today. So many visitors to the exhibition find it utterly implausible that this is really your taxi to the space station and back.
I know. There is a little module just above it that you can float into after the launch is over. So there's sort of a hatch between this and the next module. But yeah, this is the bit where the 3 cosmonauts sit for the launch, inside their bulky spacesuits as well, of course. But you've been in this for, say, hundreds of hours in simulators before, so it feels very much like home. You trust very much that it's been pieced together correctly. You know, the control panel is exactly the kind of thing that you just know inside out, back to front. You know exactly how to do it in your sleep. This has been through the wars, so this has come back through the atmosphere, so the heat shield underneath would have protected it quite hugely, but nonetheless, the whole surface is blackened and charred. That was my window on the right side, and I remember as we were coming back through the atmosphere, 5.5 G, plasma building up around the outside, and then I was sitting back, seeing the outside surface kind of bubbling up and crizzling away, and you know it's supposed to, but it's really weird.
Now I want to ask you about a wonderful object here in the exhibition, because I'm with the real Helen Sharman, but in fact there's another Helen Sharman. Could this possibly be anything to do with you?
This was my spacesuit, the only suit I've ever had that's made to measure. Yeah, it's designed to sit inside the seat inside the Soyuz spacecraft with your knees bent up and your back sort of slightly arched down, and it's wired for strength. So that means to actually stand up straight is quite difficult.
When you get into the capsule ready to go on your ascent, I think a lot of people think that you get straight in and press the on button. But in fact, how long do you spend doing checks and getting ready to launch?
The whole thing is probably just in excess of 2.5 hours beforehand, as you sort of climb into your seats, strap in, and just start the process. So you connect to the radio, you connect your ventilation pipe to the ventilation in the Soyuz spacecraft, and that actually pushes air through the spacesuit itself. Because it's very hot. If you can imagine that, even with the helmet open, that's the only bit, your face, that's exposed. So it's quite hot and sweaty. So the idea is these pipes go all the way through, down to your feet, down to your arms, and little air vents underneath your chin, so that actually when the helmet is closed, you don't mist up.
Now, there's a bit of a contrast between the suit we saw a few moments ago and this extraordinary object here.
So this is an EVA suit, so the suit that they would actually use to do spacewalks in. So rather than using the life support system of the spacecraft, this has everything that you would need to go out into space and survive out there for quite a few hours. These spacewalks last a long time.
When you look at it from this angle, it looks like a suit with a rucksack on, but it's not, is it? It's one integrated unit.
Yeah, the back just opens up, so they climb into it, and then the back has to be closed for them, so you can't really get into this on your own. You need support from the crewmate who remains inside the space station. But this particular spacesuit, I think, must have been in space when I was on the space station Mir. And there were two of these spacesuits, and they put them in the airlock. And that airlock had three windows, one at each sort of opposite each other. And because of that, I would go in there to look at the Earth and to take photographs of the Earth, because then if the space station did a manoeuvre, I could just flip to the other window very quickly and carry on taking my photos.
Now, just beyond that spacesuit is this very shiny and rather intriguing object, which is, I think, a rather speculative look at a spacesuit for a Mars 500 mission. Now, that's not a mission that's actually happened, of course.
So I wonder if we will ever go to Mars. I really think it's there. We're getting closer and closer, almost by the year now. So it's becoming attainable. Will we actually look like that on the surface of Mars? I'm not sure. Radiation is seriously going to be an issue on Mars. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for spacesuits up there, is what sort of protection can you provide within the suit itself to stop the radiation damage. It might even be pharmaceuticals, so we might provide the protection to the human body itself.
If I am prepared to go on a Mars mission, and that is quite a big commitment, would you come with me?
Of course.
Do you think we'd cope?
We'd make a great team, wouldn't we?
Well, why don't we go and look at the last object in the exhibition and see if you think it captures the spirit of what we're trying to tell. Well, Helen, we're in the concluding part of the exhibition with this rather remarkable object, which is a tissue mannequin sent around the moon on the Zonda mission, and each little capsule would have contained a human tissue sample, and then, of course, when it re-entered Earth, it would have been tested for the radiation levels. But the real reason I wanted to bring you here is two reasons. One is because, rather poignantly, it has the face of Yuri Gagarin. But the real reason, it sits in this wonderful cradle. And you, of course, will know the great quote from Tsiolkovsky, the great founder of the Russian space program, that Earth is the cradle of humanity, but one cannot live in a cradle forever. Now, he said that in 1911, and of course his exhibition looks at all that's happened since then. Only a little while ago, you and I were talking about missions to Mars. What are your reflections on that incredible journey of a century?
Tsiolkovsky said this statement so many years before it was even possible to do more than imagine, which is what he did. But what a visionary. So often now, we're still asked, I'm still asked, what's the point of going into space? Why do we send people up into space? And there's lots of reasons that we do, but still the main reason is that one thing that Tsiolkovsky said so many years ago. It's
very easy, and I'm guilty of this, to fall into the trap of talking about the great figures, Tsiolkovsky, Korolev, obvious, towering figures. But what you seem to be saying is, in fact, the enormous collaboration that has made this happen, and sometimes completely unknown figures. When one thinks of the enormous numbers of doctors, engineers, parachute makers, those who provide the food, I mean, it really is a secular army.
It's tremendous, and every cosmonaut knows that they might be the one getting the glory on the top of the rocket, but they're only there because of that huge team behind them. And of course, you work with these people all the time, and so you do become very close to them. Recently, I was able to meet the doctor who worked with me 25 years ago. First time I met him for 25 years, but it felt like it was just yesterday. It's that powerful nature of human relationships that drives the whole machine forward into the future.
Well, that's such an inspiring note. I couldn't possibly think of anything else to ask you after that, other than really to say this, which thank you so much for being on this journey with me. It's been a wonderful privilege to spend time with you, and I've got to know you, of course, in the production of the exhibition, but to really spend time alone without any visitors in this space and just realise how moving and extraordinary this whole cosmonaut story is.
It's been a real treat for me, Ian. Thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart. Can I hug you?
Of course.